Welcome to the Business Spotlight series. My name is Everardo Resendis. People around here know me as Coach Ever. I am a business and executive coach with Action Coach in Northwest Louisiana. Today, I have Bob Stakenborghs with Advanced Microwave Imaging as my guest, and we're going to be talking about his business, the journey to business ownership, challenges, best practices, and share a peek into what it's really like to own and operate a business. If this is your first time on the channel, please be sure to like and subscribe to get notifications when we drop new conversations just like this one. And so, Bob, welcome and thank you for being here today.
Thank you. No, I appreciate the opportunity. Glad to have an opportunity to discuss business with folks. So appreciate it.
So, will you share a brief overview of your background and tell us a little bit about advanced microwave imaging?
Yeah, sure. So my background actually is in nuclear power. I was in a commercial nuclear power for quite some time. In 2004, I started working with a company here in Baton Rouge that had a subsidiary that was doing some very early microwave inspection, and I got very interested in it. So in 2020, in March of 2020, right before COVID, actually, so I didn't, so not knowing that was going to happen,
Timing
I
is
started.
everything, isn't it?
Yeah, timing is everything. Yeah, so it gave me a good opportunity to really to focus on what I was doing because there was nothing else going on. So in March of 2020, I started my own business, Advanced Microwave Imaging, and kind of got away from the nuclear power business for the most part. And it's becoming more and more so. I still do some consulting in nuclear power, but that's becoming less and less as my time in this business becomes more and more. So what we do with advanced microwave imaging is we do research and development and then sales of inspection equipment that uses microwaves as opposed to ultrasound or X-rays or anything like that to inspect composite materials like fiberglass, plastic, ceramics and things like that. So that's what we
For
do.
people who are not familiar with this industry, okay? Um, I know, working in pipelines for some time, right?
Yep.
All the welding that is being done needs to be inspected to make sure that it's going to last. So I
Yes.
remember that they will use these X-ray machines that will come in and take an X-ray of the weld to
Mhm.
make sure it had integrity, right?
Right. Yep.
Um,
100%.
in some other cases, they will actually perform destructive tests where they will break things, bring them to a breaking point just to kind of figure out whether the materials and the combination of conditions were right for that. What you're doing is a little bit different, right?
Yes. Correct.
Is neither. And I remember in the case of X-ray, it was very limited. You couldn't really see everything. You need to have a very well trained eye on what was going on.
That's
And
right.
here and there will be mistakes, even with that inspection going on.
No, for sure. Yeah, that's certainly true. So the difference it's there's definitely an analogy between microwave inspection and ultrasound. It's very similar in a lot of regards, and of course, it's different in the biggest regard is that it uses electromagnetic radiation versus sound waves. But we get the same type of imaging and the same type of data, but the limitation is ultrasound is very, very good on metals, and microwaves are very, very good on composite materials, and so not metals. And so one of our biggest client bases now is wind turbine blade inspection. So it's a big fiberglass structure, and so very complex. They use core materials like balsa wood and foam, and so microwaves have a very distinct advantage over ultrasound in that particular inspection regime. But we're essentially doing the same thing. We're looking for manufacturing flaws or flaws that have occurred over time, cracking, delaminations. So a lot of the same things go on as in metal inspection, but just in composite. So
Love it, love it. Okay, well, set the stage for the viewers, the listeners. Um, what does your current ownership structure look like? I mean, are you the sole founder owner? Are there other
I
people,
am,
partners?
yeah, I'm the sole, I am the, like we say, the CEO and the chief bottle washer, and I do all the research and development. And then when I get bigger projects in, I will typically hire some part-time folks to come help out in the times when we need them. I have other folks that I'm associated with on a regular basis that handle specific parts of the business, specific technical parts. For example, we have a very specific inspection antenna that we use, and a friend of mine in the UK designs and builds those antennas for us. And so we have it's a very our application is very distinct and different from anybody else's microwave offering, which makes it quite unique in the industry. So there's not a lot of competition in that regard, which is good, but yeah, so that's how we handle the business. So I typically, I run everything from this end, and then I handle sales and development and research and the whole nine yards. So
All right,
one
very good.
stop shop, one stop shop, if you were.
One stop shop for everything. So wearing all these hats is certainly a challenge, and more so when you're trying to grow, because it's coordinating with people, making sure that everything on the delivery end is being done, and at the same
Yes.
time paying attention to the new opportunities that come along. And so, in your role as CEO, the question is, how much of your time, percentage-wise, will be utilized in dealing with the operational necessities of the business, and how much is dedicated to let's say, the vision casting, the strategy planning. You have any idea of how much that is?
Well, so I seem to I seem to operate on about a 26 or 27 hour day, I guess. I don't know, but I would say that so there's a couple of aspects to what we're doing that's a little bit different, and I'll just kind of explain those a little bit. And so bringing something, this is a new testing technique, a non-destructive testing technique. So there is the aspect that we have to convince everybody that it actually works, and that we can see the flaws and defects that they're looking for. And so a large part of that, I get a large number, and you can kind of see it on the shelf behind me. That's my sample shelf. And so I have people send me samples. Actually, they send me samples from all over the world. I've gotten samples from Singapore. I've gotten samples from the UK, from the US, of course, in multiple areas, and different industries. So we have obviously like I said, our big clients right now are wind turbine blades, and so there's multiple examples of wind turbine blade flaws. I have high density polyethylene. I have a field right behind the lab here where it's full of high density polyethylene pipe with various fusions, butt fusions, and things like that. So there's that aspect of getting the technique out there. And then there's the aspect of once they say, okay, I've heard about this. Now I want to see what it can do. They send us a sample. We inspect it, show them what it can do, and then it's the follow up with, okay, do you want, now that I've done all that, are you going to buy a system? How does that work? What does it look like? How many do you want? Things like that. And then there's designing and developing the specific system that they need. And we have a number of standard systems that we developed. And so it's a lot of different components, that actions that have to take place before we actually get the income coming in. And so, we've built up that reputation and that clientele over since 2020, over the last 5 years. So just from last year to from 2024 to 2023, 2023 to 2024, we doubled our revenue in 2024, which was a good thing. So it had been reasonably stable. Even in 2020, I had a very nice contract with the Electric Power Research Institute, and so we were able to continue to move forward. But now, like I said, we've doubled the revenue in 2024, and we expect to grow again in 2025. So
Love it, love it. Okay,
it is
so
definitely a journey, though.
well, I mean, the challenge that you're facing is that you're a trailblazer. You're going into something that nobody else has done before, so you're having to open up the market for it, and then you have to build the credibility of it, which makes it a hard
Right.
sell. You
That's
know,
exactly right.
it's challenging to say the least. But as you're going through these, you're building systems that will enable you to do that at a higher volume, in a much more leveraged way. And so let's move on to what makes your business so special, right? I know that you have something that is perhaps unique or new into the marketplace, right? Um, but there's a lot of applications for these. Who primarily does your business serve? I mean, I know you talked about the wind turbines being your biggest customer right now, but if I were in the audience and I have something to inspect, how will I know that this is right for you?
Well, so if it's built from a composite material, and you're interested in knowing how well that composite is constructed, or if there are flaws inside that composite, then there's really no better application than a microwave application. Ultrasound works reasonably well on some of the composite materials, but in general, ultrasound is does not it gets absorbed quite a bit by the material. So there's a downside to ultrasound. Now, ultrasound is everybody's go-to. So all of the non-destructive testing companies in the US, they all have an ultrasound piece of equipment. And so
Hmm.
whenever they get anything new, their first thought is, well, let me use this ultrasound piece of equipment. I did a series of presentations for the American Society of Non-Destructive Testing, and the key to the presentation was the thought is that if all you have is a hammer, everything looks like a nail, right? No matter what it is, you're going to try to use that hammer. And so anybody that has a non-destructive testing company, they have 5 or 6 different types of ultrasound equipment. The first thing they're going to do is try that. And if they get any kind of good result, they're going to say, okay, yeah, this works great, right? But that's not really the case. And so we found that took some time to get companies that were using UT on wind turbine blades, for example, to know that, gee, there is a definite advantage to microwaves in certain situations. And so now that same type of process can be applied to fiberglass tanks and piping in the petrochemical industry, which there's quite a bit of. And there's always new applications that come up that I've never even thought of before. So there's always something that someone says, hey, if I had the following thing, could I inspect it with microwaves? And you think
Right.
about it and go, yeah, you probably could. Yeah. So it is interesting. It's challenging, put it that way.
Well, so I'm thinking here through the different options for these, okay? And it occurs to me that, perhaps one part of your market is those non-destructive testing companies. They will probably come to acquire your equipment because that way they can provide the service to the customers,
Mhm.
right? Then you will have manufacturing or industry that will require to have their own equipment, right?
Yes. Mhm.
To test their own products. And then the other thing that occurs to me is that there will be those that will probably not want to acquire equipment, right? But maybe send samples of what they're producing to you so you can test them and give them reports on that. Is that
Yes.
all
And we
part of
do.
the equation?
Yes, and we do some of that too. Yeah. So some of these samples that you see, if they said, hey, if we can, it depends on what they're interested in. But if they say, if we can see what we want to see, then we're interested in buying some equipment, then I'll usually do it. I perform that service kind of gratis and give them a little mini report. But I do get a lot of times failure analysis for high density polyethylene and fiberglass, and we'll do an inspection first with a microwave system, and then we'll dissect it and do some destructive testing. And so there is that aspect of the business as well. So we do a little bit of that, probably about 10% of the total business, 15% of the total business might be in that regard. And then the other 90, 85% would be sales of equipment sales. So
Very good.
but yeah, but
Very good.
so when you think about the markets, that's the interesting thing, right? Is because you've got fiberglass boats, you've got large fiberglass. We had a request a couple of years ago to fly up to New York City to inspect a fiberglass pool in a giant yacht because they had a leak in the pool. They wanted to understand where the leak was, and it was a double wall construction, so you couldn't see it very easily. So there's fiberglass and composite materials, ceramics that are used everywhere. So it's got a lot of applications, a lot of which I haven't thought of yet. So
Very cool. And so what is one thing you wish more people knew about your business and what you have to offer?
Well, the one thing is that, don't always look at, if you have an inspection requirement that that is associated with a composite material, a plastic, don't always look to ultrasound to be the the way to do it. Just think outside the box a little bit and try to find different methods, and different techniques, because there are different techniques, and some of them work better. And I think we're getting there. We've made quite an impression. And you mentioned manufacturing, so I work with one of the biggest wind turbine blade manufacturers in the world right now. We're looking at putting a couple of pieces of equipment in some of their factories, in India and in Turkey. And so there's lots of it took a while, but I think we're making some headway in a lot of these industries. So, and hopefully we'll be doing some inspections in the petrochemical area pretty soon. So
I love it. Okay. Well, this leads me to marketing. I'm always curious about what businesses are doing, and more so when they are trying to expand into new markets and new opportunities, right? It's an area that not a lot of people put a lot of thought into, but the reality is that, it's the life and blood of what we do. So I wonder, what's marketing like for you? Are there a number of strategies that you pursue? Is there a budget for them? How do you plan for that?
yeah, we do budget for marketing. And so to be honest, and we do some work on LinkedIn. We have a website, but honestly, the website doesn't get updated that frequently. But we do like to keep the LinkedIn post updated, and we're going to be starting some YouTube videos here shortly, to help kind of get the word out. But it's difficult, when you're talking about a technical sub topic like this, and I get
That's
I
right.
get I get inquiries all the time, like, oh, we can double or triple your leads. I'm like, no, you really can't, because you don't even know who my leads are, right? If you think I'm going to go on LinkedIn and double or triple the people that are interested in the equipment that would buy, then that's a different. Then you're not. It's not going to happen. It's not that kind of business. People, first of all, have to understand that you're out there. They have to see the equipment, see the results, and then understand what it can do for their application. And it's a process. It's not an easy thing. So honestly, I found the most probably the biggest bang for the buck as far as uh, marketing for this type of business is in technical presentations at conferences. So if you get to the right conference, and there's a couple of really good wind turbine. Last year, I did three presentations on at wind turbine blade conferences in 2 months, and that kind of pushed. And I would have to say, I believe that kind of pushed us over the edge for folks understanding, because our number of inquiries went way up after that. And the I also do the analytics. So
Yeah.
I look at LinkedIn analytics and go, oh, okay, look, we had a whole bunch of people that looked at us this month. That's great. So, but I think that helped us get associated with the right folks that were interested in the equipment as a result of that. So our number of inspection requests, well, actually, and I would say but we don't really do the inspections. So I work very closely with a number of with some of the very large inspection companies in the U.S. and internationally that have our equipment, and so they I help them market and answer questions when they're asked. But their inquiries went up quite a bit after those conferences, and so I know that they were effective in getting the name out there. So.
So you do the marketing not only for you, but for those who are using your products.
Yeah, and I do. I help them out, and I think that's only right. The more business I can attract to them in the inspection business, that's what this is all about, right?
Right?
So the more inspection business they have, the more pieces of equipment that they're going to need. And so we're looking right now at, that's why we think 2025 for a number of reasons is going to be, much better than 2024. And so we'll probably be well over $1 million in 2025, the way things are looking right now, which is a big deal for us. So considering that it's really just me doing all this. So,
Very
but
good.
so we have a number of big clients, and it should hopefully it'll be an interesting year. So
Well, it only takes doing the work, right?
it does,
Well,
and what's interesting, what I think is interesting is you have to. I mean, I enjoyed nuclear power quite a bit. It was very interesting, but this interested me from a technical aspect, and I learn new things every day, and it keeps you young when you start thinking about things like this. And there's new aspects, and like I said, people send stuff all the time that you go, I don't know, send it, I'll try it.
very good. All very good. Well, we spent a little bit of time talking about the business and what the things that you've been doing to bring it up to speed. But I love to take a step back and dive into the journey a little bit more. And so
Sure.
I'm going to ask you this because you did start with the nuclear consulting, right? But at some point you were working for somebody. You decided I'm going to do this on my own, right? So what was that transition like for you? What made you make
Well,
that?
yeah, it wasn't, I mean, it's not an easy decision to make. You have to really consider a lot of aspects. But I had a vision of what I thought it could be, that this technology could actually be doing. And it was not working the way, with the folks that I was working with. And so I thought, well, I'll give this a shot. And then, of course, I had a friend who was working at Electric Power Research Institute, and he was very interested in moving it along. And he said, "Okay, I'll tell you what, I'll give you a contract. You come to work, you build this equipment for us, and we'll do some inspections, do some testing, and things like that." And that helped me get through 2020, and then 2020 and 2021, and so and then by 2022, you're kind of going, oh, now I'm kind of thinking, gee, I don't know, maybe this wasn't such a great idea, but it never stopped interesting me. So it was always something new and kind of and fresh. So that was
All
really
right.
that was really the key to keep moving on. So
So as you look at your journey so far, what has been the most memorable roadblock that you had to overcome, the obstacle you needed to cross, that you were challenged with and you needed to get through?
the biggest obstacles, we had a very clear vision of what I wanted the equipment to look like and what I wanted it to do. But getting the software to work along with the equipment was a really challenging bit. And I would say, so we got I teamed with a couple of known entities in the software part of this. Um, and then we tweaked and tweaked, and it was good. It was good. Then I'm like, let's try to make it a little bit better, and try to make it a little bit better and better. And then I'd say in the middle of 2023, the software just clicked into place, and it was almost exactly what I wanted it to look like, which was interesting. And then from then on, from 2023, then through 2024, that's how we started really developing a lot of traction with everybody, is once we got that software dialed in to where we wanted it to be. But getting there was a because I'm not the software guy. That's one thing I'm not. I I could do some of it, but not C plus and all that kind of stuff. So I was working with some folks and trying to get them to understand what I was looking for, and then get the product back, and then back and forth and back and forth and back and forth. And finally it just all clicked into place. And then I understood what I was looking at. And then from there I was able to explain it to other people. So
Wow. So it really is like reaching that point of confidence when everything
yes.
comes together, and now you can take it
Yep.
further.
That's
Many
exactly
people
right.
never get to that point.
I
They
know, I know. And I could see that happening. I could see it was, and I wouldn't say I was frustrated, because people were interested in what we were doing. They could kind of see what we were doing, but it just it was kind of an aha moment when I said, okay, now let's make this one final modification. And they did. They sent it to me, and I started looking at it, and I went, oh wow, this is exactly what I wanted it to look like. And that was and now it's actually getting better now, because and we're not changing the software, but we're understanding the power of what we can do with this software. And so that's where we're seeing some really interesting results in some of these very complex structures that we're doing.
Wow. It's almost like discovering what its
It
capabilities are when
is.
you are actually the one that created it in the first place. Isn't
Yeah,
that
it is.
interesting?
It is. It is. It is. It was a good feeling when I started when I and then I can I have a large number of folks that are in the NDT industry that I know, and I can send them these images and I go, what do you think of this? And then I get these, oh wow, emails back, and I'm like, yes, I got it now. I got it. So
Love it. Very good, Bob. Well, let's fast forward onto what comes next. Like, where do you see the business in the next 3 to 5 years?
well, ultimately, what I want to do is I there are so as a result of this 2023 epiphany, we had a we've been able to increase our sales and continue with research and development, and so we've got a couple of very distinctive products that that we're looking at coming out, and we've got some provisional patents that have been filed, and so we're looking at expanding the technology. Everybody, in this day and age, right? It's can you do it? Can you do it faster? Can you do it cheaper? And so we're
Yes.
looking at some ways of doing that. And then there's some specialty applications that we're looking at. And what's interesting about this whole technology area is that the sensor technology is developing so quickly, and it's because of other unrelated industries. Radar sensors they're almost everywhere now. You have radar sensors on your automobile, you have radar sensors on drones, you have radar sensors almost everywhere, right? And so that just means that the capabilities of these sensors and the cost of these sensors is being driven down by this huge demand that's out there for other industries. And so we try to take those sensors and then apply them to other areas of inspection. And so we've been able to successfully do that in a couple of very distinctive areas. And so we're looking at now, so in the next 3 to 5 years, we want to take those to another level, and then expand that base of doing it quicker, cheaper, um, uh, with different pieces of equipment and different solutions for different industries, and then be able to leverage that hopefully through and we've got some interest from larger companies as well, that are now interested in the technology and what we're doing. And so we hope to be able to at least partner with someone in a large company, um, and then um, and then help, hopefully they'll be able to inject enough capital into the project. This whole business was funded, self-funded. I don't have any backers. I didn't do any of that stuff, so it was just all the sales go back into research and development and things like that. So to have a large backer would be really nice. It would give us the opportunity to be able to look at some of these things and develop them a lot quicker. So
Love it. Okay. Well, of course, as you move into the future, you start thinking about that. The question is always, how much is enough, right? How can I justify the efforts that I put in forward, and in what ways I'm going to leverage, right? Now, you're producing these equipment, you're building it here. Am I
yes,
correct?
yep.
Right. So with the advent of, tariffs and, the economic situation we're going through right now, m- making things in America seems like a great idea. And so, do you see yourself continuing that process over here?
Well, to some extent, I mean, I hope so. So I think eventually what'll happen is this is we'll as we start to, and we're already talking about that this year because of the possibility of some of the larger projects that we're talking about. We've recently started, we've sold some equipment to, and there's space applications as well, because some of the materials that they use in the space applications are lightweight foams and things like that that have to be, they have to make sure they're well adhered. And so there's some of these space organizations that have become interested. And so as that, and you can see now, I mean, you look at the number of launches that are going on a regular
Yes.
basis, and they reuse that equipment, and then they want to be able to inspect it very quickly and then send it back up into orbit and things like that. And so that, uh, you know, a singular client, and we've talked to almost all of the big folks like Blue Origin and SpaceX and United Launch Alliance, and we've sold some equipment to some of them, and so they're just starting out on that journey where they can find out what this actually can do. And if any one of those say, okay, now we need a large number or something to inspect, and this large diameter rocket, then it's a different story, right? So now we're looking at having to get folks that are going to be involved in manufacturing and things like that, and so that will open up a whole new area of business. So I'm hoping that's what happens in 2025. But
Well, there you go. It will happen if you will it.
mm,
You work for
yeah,
it. Okay. Very good. Well, we have certainly covered a lot of ground in this conversation, and for those people who are watching, I highly encourage you to save these and come back a few times. There's a lot of great nuggets here. And so, as we begin to wrap up, I have a few rapid fire questions, Bob. Quick,
sure,
couple of answers for each. Okay.
okay.
What is the key to success for you?
The key to success is perseverance. It's moving on, and I like to think that I'm always trying to think about what the next product is going to be, what the next inspection is going to be, what the next piece of equipment is going to be, and at the same time we bring the other equipment along to a spot where we really really like it and we keep it there, but we want to keep thinking ahead, and one step ahead I think is the real key.
Very good. What is your one piece of advice for other business owners?
One piece of advice would be, I think it's honestly, if you have a vision, I think maybe that's the advice is make sure that you have a vision for what you want your business to look like and what you want it to achieve. And so if you think this, you want to be at a certain spot, you want it to look like something, then that gives you a better opportunity to move towards that vision. So
Big believer in setting up a very um, clear picture of where you want to go, starting with the end in mind to begin with,
yes,
right?
yeah,
So,
beginning
what
with the
is
end in mind is always a good thing. Yeah.
absolutely? So, what is one book that you're reading now or have read most recently?
I like science fiction and I like science topics. So the last one I read actually was a book called Extraterrestrial by Avi Loeb. It's about and I can't ever pronounce the name of it. It was an object that entered the solar system a number of years ago, and it had a very irregular orbit, and they think it might have been launched by some extraterrestrial, alien life, if you will. It wasn't science fiction, that was a real story, but it's very
Okay,
interesting to see how it just entered the universe. It entered the edge of our solar system and then left on a very irregular path that wouldn't have been quite right for a natural object. So it got everybody very interested.
wow, that sounds interesting. All right. If you had to choose only one area of your business that you could immediately improve tomorrow, what will that be?
If I could say that again, no?
If you had to choose only one area of your business that you could immediately improve tomorrow, what will that be?
The one area would be, well, that's an easy one. It would be all the accounting end of it. That's I'm not very good at that, and I have some outside accountants that try to keep me straight, but they do what they can, but it's a very difficult job. So
I
that's the
got
one
you.
spot.
It is certainly for
Bookkeeping,
those who are
bookkeeping, but
very
it's
driven,
important.
for the people who are driven to produce and make operations work. The accounting part seems to be a challenge. It's quite normal.
It is a
So
challenge. Yes.
you're not alone there. I sense that a lot of people
Well,
will
that's good.
identify.
That's good. I didn't sense that I was, but that's comforting. So,
All right. So before we get into the final question of the day, Bob, how can other people learn more about you or your company? How can they get in
well, we
touch
have
with you?
our website is advancedmwimaging.com. I have a advanced microwave imaging LinkedIn channel. You can reach us through the website. And once you take a look at what we have, if you have composite materials that you'd like to inspect somehow, then drop me a line. I'm always willing to talk about it. If we have the right solution, we'll try to get it to you. And then, for new customers, we have we do offer a discount on equipment for new customers. So if you're interested in any of that, just let us know, and we'll be happy to help you out.
Wonderful. So, Bob, last question. What do you find is most inspiring for you today?
Most inspiring. It's a good question. I don't know. For me, the inspiration is I just like to, I hope that in the end that this will be a benefit to the industry. Because I think the US runs on industry and economy, and I feel like we need to get back in that focus. And America's been, driven into a service based, economy. And I'd rather see us producing things and making things. And so I think with the right NDT and the right kind of structures, and we can get back to that. And so I hope that advanced microwave imaging is helping to kind of make that happen in those industries that use composite materials. And I do love the space aspect of it, I have to tell you. So
Well, thank you very much for joining us today and sharing all these with us, Bob. Thank you to the audience for watching and sharing. You never know who you might be inspiring by having them listen or watching this interview. And so make it a great day. And until next time.
thank you.